The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Penny saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it. For indeed life is made up of sobs, sniffles and smiles, with sniffles predominating. Della finished her cry and attended to her wet cheeks. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She had been saving every penny she could for months, with this result. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him, something fine and rare and sterling, something near to being worthy of the honor of being Jim's wife. But $1.87. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. Suddenly, Della whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now, there were 2 possessions in which Jim and Della both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang to dry out the window just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him shiver with envy. Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. She did it up again nervously and quickly, faltering for just a minute, and stood still while a tear or 2 splashed on the worn red carpet. On went her old brown jacket. On went her old brown hat. She fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street, stopping at a sign that read, Madame Sofroni, hair goods of all kinds. 1 flight up Della ran, then asked, Will you buy my hair? I buy hair, said Madame. Take that hat off and let's have a sight of it. Down rippled the brown cascade. $20, said Madame, lifting the mass with a practiced hand. Yes, thank you, quickly now, Della replied. The next 2 hours tripped by on rosy wings, ransacking the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she knew because she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by empty baroque ornamentation. It was truly worthy of the watch. It must be Jim's. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. When Della reached home, giddy delight gave way to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked long at her reflection, carefully and critically. What could I do? Oh, said Della to herself. What could I do with $1.87? At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat at the table near the door where he always entered. Then she heard his step on the first flight down below, and she turned white for just a moment. Please, God, make him think I'm still pretty. The door opened and Jim stepped in. He looked thin and very serious, his overcoat threadbare and his fingers ungloved. Poor fellow, he was only 22, yet seemed so burdened. Just inside, Jim stopped, his eyes fixed upon Della. There was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her with that peculiar expression on his face. Della wriggled off the table and went for him. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold because I couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you." You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim, laboriously, as if the patent fact was an irreconcilable revelation. "Cut it off and sold it," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well, anyhow? I'm still me without my hair, aren't I?" Jim looked around the room curiously. "You say your hair is gone," he said, with an air almost of idiocy. "You needn't look for it," said Della. "It's sold, I tell you, sold and gone. It went for you. Maybe the hairs on my head were numbered," she went on with sudden serious sweetness, "but nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim?" Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della in his arms. Then, releasing her slowly, he drew a package from his overcoat pocket and placed it upon the table. "Don't make any mistake, Del," he said, "about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like you any less. But if you unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first." Fingers, nimble and trembling, tore at the string and paper. An ecstatic scream of joy, and then a change to hysterical tears as heartbroken sobs filled the flat. For there lay the combs, the set of combs that Della had worshipped long in a high street window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the tresses that should have adorned the coveted adornments were gone. But she hugged them to her bosom, and some moments later she looked up with dim eyes and a smile and said, "My hair grows so fast, Jim." Jim just stared back at his beautiful, shorn wife. Then Della leaped up and cried, "Oh, oh!" for Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him, eagerly upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of a bright and ardent spirit. "Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it." Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch, put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. "Del," said he, "let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on."